Okay. So in the last session, we discussed about the one of the important concept to call lambda example we identified. So the lambda, how we can define the lambda and how the lambda is going to take the parameter and how we can define the body of the lambda, or we discuss about the multiple lines of code, how this particular lambda it is going to work internally. Okay. But now what I will do, another important concept we are going to discuss in the today's session, like method references. So this is one of the important section we are discussing, how this particular method references it is going to work. For this particular method references, I'm going to create a one more class here. So using this particular method references, we'll identify. So before writing this particular class example, now I want to provide the syntax here, how this particular method reference it is going to work. Basically, we have a one class name called test. Okay, so how I'm writing here this particular class test I'm going to write here, and inside this particular test here I'm having one static method. Okay, this method it is not going to return anything, and this method basically something like sr1. Okay, so something like just I'm giving the sr1 name of the method, and I'm writing some code inside this particular method. So now observe carefully, we are having one class called test here, and inside this particular test we are having one method called s1. Now what exactly the method is doing here, it is trying to perform some operations, so some multiple lines of code we define, and after this I want to call this particular method. So basically how we are going to call, something like class name dot method name, because it is a static method. Otherwise, if we are in the same class, directly we can call method name. This is we discussed in the previous example. Okay. Now, what we need to understand basically using this particular method references, how we are going to call this particular same method. Okay. So to call this particular method reference, here again I'm going to make the same class name. Okay, here I'm going to add colons here. So these are the important information. These colons basically it will try to come up with a method reference concept after this particular colon. Now I'm going to write the method name here. Okay, this is one of the important concept we need to understand. So class name colon colon and method name here. Okay, class name colon method name. So this is we need to understand very carefully. This particular section we are going to call it as a method references. So for example, if I want to call the s1 method, how we are going to call test2 colon. Okay, so I'm trying to add this particular colon and s1. So s1 is a method here. So test double colon s1. So this particular section we'll call it as a method references. Now we'll understand here how this particular method is going to call internally, and if I'm having the parameters, how we are going to provide the same parameters we'll try to identify here. Okay, now we understand the simple example how this particular method references is going to work internally. Let me provide the information. So now understand the simple example. First I will create the interface. So again, for this particular method references also we are going to write the interfaces concept. Okay, now understand here string function. Here I'm trying to write the string function. Inside this particular string function, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to write the same whatever we defined in the earlier example. So this is a function, and it is expecting to take one parameter. Okay, so this is we'll call it as a functional interface. This is we'll call it as a functional interface. Now understand here what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a one class, because so once we define the class, once we define the interface, we are going to write the particular class to perform this particular operations here. Okay, so now understand how I'm going to write. So basically here we need to understand very carefully, and my string operation. So my string operation I'm going to write, and inside this I'm trying to define the one method. Okay, so before going to use this particular main method, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to write a string here. I'm trying to write a string. So now observe carefully. Static, the name of the behavior I'm making as a static is, and the static method will return string. Okay, and here I'm going to add str reverse. Okay, str reverse, and it is expecting one parameter called str. And after this, now what I'm doing here. So here, the section we already identified in the previous example, how we can make the reverse here. So how we can make simply int I is equals to str dot length method. I'm making the -1. Okay, and I greater than or equals to 0. And finally I minus minus. So whenever I'm doing this, now what I will do here, I'm going to write the result here. Okay, how I'm trying to write this particular result here. Now you can see result plus is equals to, okay, result plus, can we use the plus here? Now we can see result plus is equals to, now str dot caret method I'm using, and here I'm going to use the I. So using this, we are trying to convert into the results like a reverse string, and finally I'm going to return this. Okay, this is the simple information. This section we implemented with the help of this particular lambda. Now the same section I'm trying to implement with the help of this particular method reference. Now here inside this particular method reference, now how I'm going to call this? How I'm going to call? So this is one of the important example. This is one of the important example. If I observe carefully, if I'm going to provide this, okay, if I'm going to provide this, how it is going to call internally, and what is a method? str reverse. Inside this particular str reverse, if I'm going to provide my string operations and colon colon, and what is the method we are having? str reverse here. But now observe carefully here, what exactly the str reverse method is expecting? It is expecting string parameter. Getting the one? It is expecting string parameter. Now what I'm doing basically, if you observe carefully, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to pass a method reference. This section we discussed just now, it is something like a method reference, like the name of the class and colon colon and method, the particular method, which one we are going to call. But what we need to understand here, getting the point, method references internally, it is trying to look up the same functional interface here. Okay, but how we are defining this particular functional interface? Now if I'm going to show you the error, the target type is the expression must be a functional interface. Okay, we are not defining the functional interface here. This is important here. Just we are defining the string. It is a one parameter we are defining. It is expecting as a string data type. But we need to define the functional interface here. Okay, so this is not the suitable way. Now what I will do, again I am going to write one more method. Okay, so this particular method also will return the same, the string information. Now observe carefully. Here I am going to write the method references. Okay, so this is the references here. Now what I will do, using this, here I am going to provide whatever the string function we are having, and fc, and one more parameter I'm going to make something like str. So this is the method I'm defining to work on the functional references, like functional interfaces here. Whatever the method I'm defining, this is expecting as a functional interfaces. Now let me return this, return fc dot the function I'm calling. Here I'm going to make str. Now observe carefully. Now we understand this particular method is going to expect as a functional interface. Okay, so now what we need to do basically, here we need to call the one of the important concept to call reference method. Here I need to call the reference method, not the particular nor the particular str reverse method. Now you can see here it is expecting input string. So what is the input string here? Now the same input string I am going to provide something like a string input str is equals to lambda lambda added into Java. Okay, the lambda concept is added into this particular Java, and here I'm making input str. Okay, so observe carefully. Now, what you understand here? Now, if you observe carefully, instead of calling this particular str reference here, so directly we are not calling this particular str references here, but what we are doing is with the help of this particular method reference concept, with the help of this particular method reference concept, method references internally, it is trying to look up the functional interface. Okay, now if you see this entire information, now it is going to work as a functional interface here, and the second one we are trying to pass as a input same. And so based on this particular functional interface, we are calling the function method and we are passing the str. So this particular function, now it will look up this particular reverse method. Okay, it will look up this particular reverse method. So this is very important. Now functional method basically just we declare here, it is not yet implemented. So this particular code at runtime, it is implemented inside this particular function here. Okay, this is very important information we need to understand here. Okay, now if you observe the same functional interface, method internally we use it for the lambda also. Now the same functional interface, so now the same function interface now it is using for method references as well. Okay, so this is we need to understand very carefully how this particular method references is going to work internally. Okay, any questions regarding this particular example? And if I'm going to print this, for example, if I'm trying to add inside this particular sysout, directly we can print this. Directly I can print this. Now it is converted into the reverse format. Now it is converted into the reverse format. Okay. So anyone having any question? Okay. So this is one of the important example we need to understand how this particular method reference is going to work. So one more example. For example, I'm not going to use the static. Okay. If I'm not using the static, now you can see we are getting an error. We are getting an error. How can I write this? If I'm not using this particular static here, this is important we need to understand. So to understand this example, what we need to create an object here. For this particular, without the static, this is a very important we need to understand. Without the static, if I'm going to call the same method, we need to use myString operation, something like operation new myString operations here. Okay, so this is the way of creating this particular operation object here. Using this particular operation object, we can call like this. We can call like this. Now you can see the OPS is a reference variable. Okay, OPS is the reference variable of this particular myString operation object here. Using this particular myString object here, again, I'm trying to call the same method, whatever the method we are calling earlier, something like a str reverse. Okay, so this is we need to understand very carefully. So observe carefully what I'm doing here. Here I'm trying to create the same reverse information here. Okay, here I'm trying to create the same information here. Getting the point. But what we need to understand basically here, so with using string, like with using static behavior, now I did not create an object here. Okay, without the string, like without the static, without this particular static behavior, we need to create an object like this, and we need to call the reference variable first and later double colon and whatever the method we are calling. But if we observe carefully, this method is expecting one parameter. Okay, this method is expecting one parameter, but even though we are not passing any parameter here, even though we are not passing any parameter here. But how this particular parameter it is going to call? So here we need to understand very carefully. This method, the method references method, the parameter and the functional interface parameter, it should match here. Okay, the both the functional interface method as well as the method, whatever the method references method we are calling, both methods should be the parameter should be matched here. So for example, what happens here? Okay, for example, what happens here? So here I'm going to write one more method, something like into count here. Okay, whenever I'm trying to add like this, what happens internally? Now you can see we are getting an error. The type, whatever the method, my string operation does not define the string here. Okay, now it is not applicable here. Whatever we are defining here, the parameter, it is not applicable. Now you can see the references information, the method references string function string in the type call my string operation, it is not applicable for the argument, whatever we are trying to write here. Now what you understand here, whatever we are defining, the string references is expecting two parameters, but we are not providing any two parameters here. Okay, this is one of the important concept we need to understand. Same like inside the lambda, how the parameters are going to match. Same way, getting the point? Same way, we need to provide the parameter to this particular method references methods as well. Okay, so to understand this, first what we need here, we can provide the one more parameter, something like count here. Okay, here I can provide the two parameters, and so here we should provide the one more parameter, something like count, and the same parameter we can provide count as well here. So okay, so this should be match. Now here I'm going to give something like 10 here. Now you can see whatever I'm trying to provide here. So again, we can run the same example. Now we are getting the same output here. But what we are understanding is, whatever we are defining the functional interface, the functional interface abstract method parameters and the method references method parameter, it should be matched. So then only this particular method references as well as our lambda, it is going to work internally. Okay, so if we are having the mismatch regarding this particular parameter, so we are going to get an error. So this is another important section we need to understand. First, what we are understanding here, first we need to understand the static here. Okay, so another one without the static. So another one without the static, how we can create the method references. The third one, parameters information. Getting the point? So parameters. So these are all the three parameters we need to understand. Very important section inside this particular method references here. Okay. So any questions here? Any questions here?
Sir, whenever we are using lambda expression, in that we are not declaring that functional interface. But in method reference, we are declaring that functional reference, right?
So if we observe in the previous example, I will provide. If we observe carefully, this is the my number. Okay, my number is the one interface we define. It is not expecting any parameter. It is trying to return the double value. Okay. Now if we observe this particular value, it is trying to return 123.45. It is something like a double value. Okay. Same way, if you see random method, whatever the random method we discussed in the last session, it is trying to return the double type. Now, for example, if I modify to this as a string, okay, now we are getting an errors. These two are getting an errors because whatever we are making the reference, it's not matching with this particular return type here. Now you can read double to string we are doing here. Now I will go back to the same as it is here. Now this is we understand. And another important section, this is the string references here. Now we define the string function. Okay, string function is expecting one parameter called string here. Now this string, if I'm going to provide like this. Now if you observe carefully, here I'm defining the string function. Okay, and another parameter something str. Here also we define the functional interface method. Now how I'm passing it? Now I'm calling the parameter method. This is the parameter method I'm calling, and here I'm trying to pass a lambda. Okay, this two uppercase basically it will try to return the string. So just now we discussed in the today's session. If I'm going to open this, now it is trying to returning string data type here. Okay, it is trying to return the string information. Now this is we need to understand. So this entire information, now first it will go to the functional interface. From this particular functional interface, this lambda internally at runtime. Okay, at runtime it will try to define the method. The method does not contain any name here. So this particular function method, now it is going to override with help of this particular code. Whatever we are defining this section. Okay, now another one, here I'm passing the same parameter. You can see string str. Here also I'm passing str because the string function, it is expecting one parameter. Okay, with help of this one parameter, I'm doing the operation like this. So this is entire information. Now it is going as a method parameter, and this is the another parameter int, the something like in str, input str, we can call it as this, but this is whatever we are defining up to this. This is the first parameter. The entire first parameter, now it is treated as a sync function. It's like a functional interface. Second one, now it is treating as a this instr. Okay, same way here, this is the my number, not this, where we define this one. Okay, now you can see we are having two parameters. Inside this particular two parameters here, what we are doing is we are trying to providing, where is, we close that here. Now you can see this is we need to understand here. Now you can see we are trying to pass the same functional interface, and it is expecting two additional parameters because the functional interface function method is expecting two parameters. So here now you can see it is not this. Now you can see it is expecting two parameters. Now the two parameters here inside this particular operation, we are calling the functions here. So it should match basically, even if you are using the method references or if you are using the functional, sorry, lambda, the parameters are very important. It should match with whatever the functional interface we defined here. And not only the parameters, it should match with the return type also. It should match with the return type also. Then only the like a method reference concept and a lambda concept internally it will work here. Okay, is it clear?
Yes.
And here now what I will do, how we can write the this particular information with help of this particular constructor. So for example, before going to write the constructor, so I want to provide the simple example on the generic concept, how we can come up with the same method references with a generic here. Can we discuss about the generic concept with like a lambda. The simple example here we define the sum function. Now you can see the sum function internally it is expecting the same the generic type that we implemented inside this particular lambda as an argument and the exception related section. But now what you need to understand here, how we can write the method references also generic here. So to understand this, now what I'm doing is here I'm going to create a one more interface here. Here I'm trying to create a one more interface, something like my function. Okay, this particular my function internally, it is trying to extending it. Internally, it is trying to extending this particular t. And now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to refine the integer type here. Now I'm going to make as a function method. Okay, the function method. Otherwise, we can make the rename here, something like generic here. The name of the method I'm making as a generic here. Now you can observe it is expecting First one as a array type here. Second one is expecting single value. Okay, it is expecting single value. The first one we are going to provide multiple values. Second one it is now expecting as a the single value. Okay, this is we define as a one of the functional interface. The functional interface now it is having with the generic type. Now what I will do here, I'm going to provide the one example. Whatever we discuss in the array related example in lambda, the same example I'm going to write here also. My array operations here. Okay, so how exactly this particular my array operation it is going to work? Now I'm going to generate the same main method here, but before going to write the logic inside the main method, now I will try to define the static here. I'm not going to use the class as a generic here. Only I'm going to use as a this particular method as a static, like a generic here, not static here. So I define the static behavior of this particular method, but I'm going to make this particular method with a generic type here. Now already we identified this method will return the integer type here, because internally we are going to call the same functional interface. Now you can see this particular count matching method. This particular count matching method, what happens internally? It will try to find out the this particular array values here and type v. And internally, now what I am doing here, internally what I will do, I am going to write the logic for this particular type matching. Now what I will do here, I am going to write into count is equals to, by default it will count as a 0. I am going to use a loop into I is equals to 0, I less than val dot length I am going to make, and I plus plus. So it is a simple one, the loop I am repeating it, and here I am going to make the one condition VALS of I equals to V. If it is matched with this particular V, I am going to increase count to plus plus. Okay, count to plus plus. Finally, I will return count here. Finally, I will return this particular count. So this is we identified the one of the count matching method we are defining. How it is checking internally based on this particular array values, whatever the value we are providing, how many times the value is repeated. We are trying to increase in the count here, and finally we are trying to return the same count value here. But what we need to understand here, getting the point. What we need to understand here, I am going to write the functional interface, because this method, whatever the count matching method, this method I'm going to use as a method references. Getting the point? This particular method I'm going to use as a method references. Finally, now what I will do, we need to write the method, sorry, the functional interface method here. Okay, how I'm trying to write here? What is the name of the method we can make? What is the name of the method we can make? Something like operation. Okay, so otherwise we can call it as a gen operation. Gen operation is nothing but generic operations here. Okay, this is the name of the method I'm trying to write, generic operation. And internally what we can write here, first the parameter we should write as a functional interface. So the functional interface we are going to make t as it is, and after making this particular t, fc I'm going to make as a first parameter, and internally how many parameter it is going to take this particular functional interface. It is taking two values, like two parameters. Okay, so this is I'm trying to call and return fc dot the generic method I'm going to call. First one vals, second one v. I'm trying to make this. Now what happening internally? Why it is not matching this? Here I could not provide the return type here. Here I could not provide the return type here. Okay, so this is okay. I think not t. It will try to return the int. Getting the point. So this particular generic operation method we define. First parameter, it is expecting the functional interface. So it is trying to take the two additional parameters. Why it is taking two additional parameters? Whatever the generic method we defined here, it is expecting two parameters here. Okay. So to match these two parameters, I am trying to providing these two, and this particular two parameters I am passing here. Whenever I am trying to pass here, these two parameters, now it will move on to this particular count matching. Okay, these two parameters, now internally it is trying to move on to this count matching. Finally, the count matching method will call. But how I am calling this? Here I am going to pass a generic operation. So to call this generic operation, now I am going to call my array operation colon count matching. Okay, the first parameter we given as a something like method references. But what about this particular second here? For this particular second, what we will do? We'll try to write the one of the important example call integer array I'm going to take. Okay, I values here, and here I'm going to define this particular values here. So 10 comma 20, 10, 65, and 78, again 65. Okay, and 89. So some values I'm giving, and later now I'm going to make another something like s values here. This is for string related ABC, or you can take anything. Now here I'm going to take as a 1, 2, 3. Okay, and here I can take as a 4, 5, 6, and sorry, and here I can take as a 7, 8, 9, and so here I want to provide something like again 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the string related. Now what I will do, here I am going to provide, first we'll check for the integer, later we can go for the string related. Now you can see I values I'm passing here, and finally I'm going to print this, because the generic operation method is trying to return some value. Whenever it is trying to return this particular value, now what I will do, I can print those values using this particular sys out here. Now observe carefully, whenever I'm trying to give this particular 10, now what is the count we are getting? 2. How many times this particular 10 is repeated? 2 times. Getting the point? 2 times this particular 10 is repeated here. But how we are implementing this important? First, we define the one functional interface, and we define the one method. It's like abstract method, and abstract method now it is expecting two parameters. First one is array. Second one is something like the single value, not into parameter. It is a single value. And after this, now what I am doing is, here I am trying to define the one static method. This is the static method we are going to use for the method reference concept here, and another static method we are going to use for the some of the generic method purpose. Whatever the functional interface we define, the functional interface generic method purpose we define here. Okay, because directly we cannot call this count matching. If I want to call this count matching here, we are not using the important concept to call method reference, right? And here, how we can define this? If I want to write the count matching directly, we can call this particular count matching here. Okay, no need to write the functional interface, and no need to define this particular the method how it is going to work internally. Okay, this is very important example we need to understand. So another one, instead of this particular I values, I can make as a yes values. Okay, this is something like S values I am trying to providing here, but now you can see we are going to get different values here. But now you can see whenever I'm trying to give here, I'm getting a 0. This particular int value I did not provide it, because here we don't have an int value. All we provided as a string. Because of this particular type, if you observe carefully, I am not getting any error. This is I given as a string, and this is I'm trying to give as a integer. Okay, this I'm trying to give as a integer, but right now I'm not getting any error. So now observe carefully. If you make some conditions here, so using this particular generic here, if you make some condition, it will give an error here. Okay, it will give an error here. Okay, this is we need to understand. But right now I cannot go for this particular 10. I can use the 1 2 3. I can use this particular 1 2 3 to return some value. Now this 1 2 3 also it's returning 2 times here. If I'm going to make 963 comma, again I'm going to make 1 2 3. Now if I'm going to run one more time, so now it is repeating as a 3 times here. What do you understand basically here? So this is important, we need to understand here. So this entire array, it is going to loop multiple times here. So for each time, we are trying to check this particular v. V is nothing but we are passing as this particular 1 2 3. Here every time it is going to check this particular v. If this condition will match the count variable, whatever the count variable we define, it is trying to increase the value, because here post increment operator we are used. So any operator it will work, not only this pre or post, any operator we can use, it will work here. So to increase the value, once the value is increased here, now finally if the loop is completed, we are trying to return this particular count. Okay, this is important information we need to understand here. Any questions so regarding this particular generic, like method references with the generic here? Okay, if we don't have anything, now another important section we need to understand, constructor here, how this particular constructor reference is going to work. Getting the point? So this is also another important section we need to understand, how we can pass this particular constructor references here. For example, now what I will do, we are going to use the same my function. My function we made as a generic, right? First, without the generic, we'll identify. Later, we'll try to move on to the why print only 1 2 3. So why it is printing only 1 2 3? Where it is printing 1 2 3? We are not printing any 1 2 3. Just we are printing count here. It is not the count. If you observe carefully here, you need to understand this particular loop here. Now what I am doing here, I am trying to make this loop in the debug mode. Let me remove this. Okay, so observe carefully what happening internally. What is the values will contain here? How many values we are having? Now you can see 0 to 6, something like 7. The size is 7. So in the 0 index location ABC 1, 2, 3, okay, 4 and 5 and 6 here. Getting the point? These are all the multiple values we are having. So whenever we are trying to providing this particular multiple values, what happening internally? So this loop is going to repeat multiple times. Based on this particular condition fail, up to the condition fail, it is trying to repeat the loop here. First time, now it is repeating. Now what happening internally? So whatever the I value now 0. Okay, you can see the right side section. The I value 0 inside this particular variable section. I value 0. So inside this 0 index location, what is the value we are having? What is the value we are having? If I'm going to show you, in the 0, we are having ABC. So the ABC, it is not going to match with this particular V. What is the V here? V is something like 1, 2, 3. Okay, it is not going to match. Now, if it is not matched here, observe carefully. It is trying to repeat the loop. Now you can see it is trying to increment it. Count value now 1. Earlier it is 0. So again, the loop is repeating. So now the condition is not satisfied. Now condition is not satisfied. Now condition is satisfied. Now you can see count value is 2. Condition is satisfied. So again, the loop is repeating. Getting the point? So now also the condition is satisfied. Now the condition will satisfied here. Condition count is 3. Finally, it is coming out of the loop. What is the value we are getting finally? Count is 3. Whenever I'm trying to come out of this is important here. If we observe carefully, from where we are calling it, we are calling this particular get operation method. Now you can see from this particular get operation, we are calling the fc.generic method. And from this particular generic, there is no line yet because at runtime, this generic method internally it will call this particular count to matching. Finally, we are calling this particular count to matching. Count to matching now it is returning count value. First it will go to here. From here, now it will go to here. Okay, here inside the println method, the value will print here. Now what you understand here, whenever I am calling this particular generation, so from first to this is the first step, it will go to the second step, and it is the third step, and this is the fourth step here. Getting the point? This is important here. Now the count matching, it is going to call fourth step. Same way it will come to the same order, fourth to third, and third to second, second to first, and finally the println method will call and it will print the whatever the generic operation method it is trying to return the value. Okay, so this is a way of calling the internally. Finally we are trying to returning, so what is the value? Something like a 3. Okay, something like a 3 we are getting here. This is one of the important example we need to understand here, but this section we discuss about the with the generic type here. Okay, is it clear? Any questions? Okay, so I'm not getting any response, I hope. Yeah, okay, thank you. Now we'll try to identify the constructor references, how this particular constructor reference it is going to work. So similarly, how we created the method references here, same way we are going to create the constructor references here. Same way we'll try to create the constructor references. But observe carefully how I'm trying to create this particular constructor references here. Okay, so to understand this particular constructor references, I'm going to create a one more functional interface here. Okay, so something like now con func like constructor function. Getting the point? This is the constructor function I'm defining, and inside this particular constructor function, I'm going to write my class. Okay, what is exactly the method will return here? The method now it will return as a class type. Now the method it will try to return as a class type here. This is one of the important method we are discussing. Okay, and the method name anything you can take. So again, con function. Okay, so the functional interface name and function method name I'm making as the same as it is here, and the the parameter it will take one parameter. Getting the pen. This is important here. Observe carefully. This is the one of the same functional interface I'm defining. The functional interface having one same abstract method, but the return type here I'm making as a class type. This is important here. Okay. This is the method I'm making as a class type here. Now I'm going to create a one class here. Now I'm going to create a one class here. So inside this particular annotation, I'm trying to create a one class, and this particular class will contain one variable called into value. My class I'm defining. Okay, this is the my class I'm trying to define here. Default value I'm making as a 0. Okay, and here I'm trying to make one more parameter. So now what you understand here, I'm trying to providing two constructors. First one is the default constructor, second one is a one parameters constructor. Okay, this is important. Now finally, now what I'm doing is here I'm going to write the int get value method, and it will try to return the value. It will try to return the value. So this is the one of the important example we need to understand how this particular example it is working. Now you can see my class, we have a one variable, and this is the default constructor, parameterized constructor, and a method. Okay, this is we define here. But after this, now what I will do, here we need to understand very carefully. So observe here. After this particular example, here only I'm going to create the main method. Here only I'm going to create a main method, and I'm trying to create a constructor. The constructor references here. How I'm trying to create here? Something like my class. Okay, my class colon colon. Here I'm going to make new. So whenever I'm making this particular new, compiler cannot understand exactly it is. Compiler cannot understand what exactly it is here. So now if you can see what happening internally. So syntax error inside the assignment operator expression to complete the expression here. Now, so just we are declaring this, but what exactly compiler will not understand this. If I'm going to modify this information to functional interface, if I'm going to modify this to functional interface, or we can make as a constructor references here. Now you can see any error we are getting here. Any error we are getting? Now we are not getting error. But compiler now understanding it. This particular section is a constructor reference where we are using, and internally the references we made as a functional interface. So we should make the functional interface reference only. Okay, you cannot make the class type here. For example, if I'm going to make the class type, now what happening internally? We are getting an error here. So the target type, the expression must be a functional interface. Okay, we cannot make this type as a class type here, because compiler it will try to look up this at runtime by calling the whatever the abstract method we are having, by calling the whatever the abstract method. Now if we observe carefully, we created the one constructor we are trying to call. Why I'm using this new operator? So basically new operator internally it will call the constructors here. Getting the point? In the normal example also, how we are going to create an object here with help of this particular new, keyword. So how we call the box constructors. Okay, how we call this particular box constructor. Same way here also we are going to use this particular new, but this constructor directly we are not going to call. This constructor directly we are not going to call. This constructor it is going to call through the functional interface. Getting the point? This particular constructor, it is going to call through the functional interface here. So now observe carefully how I am calling it. Now once we create this, now what I will do, it is a functional interface type only. Anything it is missing. Let me save this. Now it is resolved an issue. But what we need to understand, con dot the constructor function we are calling, and here I need to provide the value. So here whatever the value we are providing, this particular value now it will call to the parameters constructor. This particular constructor it is going to call. Why it is going to call this particular constructor? Because it is calling the parameters here. Getting the one. Anything, the functional interface parameter, method references, lambda, constructor, anything we are defining, it should match here. So if the parameters are not matching here, we'll get an error. Okay, we'll get an error. So right now I'm calling this particular constructor here. Now you can see, I will print the message. One parameter constructor is called. Okay, this is the message I want to add here. And finally, after calling this particular constructor, what is the return type it is returning? The constructor function, it is trying to return the my class type here. Okay, it is trying to return the my class type, and here I can make my class here. After this, I can call the my class dot get value. Whenever I'm trying to call this particular get value, internally it is trying to print the whatever the value we are having. So observe carefully, one parameterized constructor, one parameter constructor it is called. The same message it is printing here. But how it is printing here? Because of whatever the functional whatever the functional interface abstract method we are calling, internally it will call this particular constructor. Okay, internally it will call this particular constructor and it will try to provide the values here. Getting the point? Internally it will try to provide this particular values. So this is very important example we need to understand. For example, I don't have a instead of providing this, I will provide the Boolean value. Okay, I'm trying to providing Boolean value. Now you can see what happening internally. Okay, so it is cannot use a value. So something like I'm trying to use this particular second parameter as a DOL. But now observe carefully. Now observe carefully. Whenever I'm trying to add this particular second parameter, the line number 19, we are getting an error. Okay, why we are getting an error? Now you can read this error. You can easily understand. The type my class does not define the my class int. Why it is expecting one parameter here? So now you can see my class int it is expecting. How the compiler will know here? How the compiler is now understanding here? Because by seeing this particular line, how the compiler is understanding? Compiler will check for the functional interface type. Okay, inside the functional interface type, we are having one function. Now it is expecting the one value. If I'm going to modify this to one more value, something like a Boolean value. Now you can see here we should provide the value. Now any errors we are getting? We are not getting any error. Now we can make the conditions here. If I want to make the condition, you can write here I can make something like not one parameter. We can make two parameters. Okay. So okay, so this is the way we can provide, and here I'm going to provide two parameters. Here I'm going to provide the two parameters constructor. Now you can see the two parameters value 10 comma true. Okay, here I can provide the comma to understand the values here. Now you can see 10 comma true it is printing. Finally, whatever the get value method we are calling, the get value internally it is trying to print the value of this particular 10. How it is initializing with by calling this particular constructor and the local variable value, and it is initializing into the instance value. Whenever I'm calling this particular get value, now I'm getting the value. So here we are calling the get value. But what we need to understand here, whenever we are trying to define the same functional interface, it should match the type here, class type. Okay, it should match the class type. If it is not matching here, again, what happens internally? So we'll have some problems here. So because once a constructor method will, once this particular functional interface abstract method will call, we are not going to get the object of this particular class here. For this purpose, we need to make the return type as a class, so that whatever the remaining method we are having inside this particular class, we are going to call here. But observe, this section will call it as a constructor references here. Okay, this section will call it as a constructor references. Now this is important here, how we are calling the constructor reference. Same thing we can implement it inside this particular the functional interface what we implemented here. Okay, so this is also simple example. Instead of writing this particular section, now what can I do? Directly we can define the one method and we can call this. So for example, static not class, it will return the my class, and construction construction method. Okay, and here what is the function method we are having? This is the function method we are having, and I'm making fc, and we need to provide the two more values. First one is a value boolean v, and return fc dot the constructor method we can call. Finally, so value we can provide, and we can provide the value, sorry, v we can provide, and Instead of doing this, now what can I do? Directly we can call this. So here I will call the constructor method. I'm going to call. Here I will copy this. Okay, here I will copy this. And the value, what is the value I can provide? Something like here I can provide the 10 comma 10 comma true. And so directly if I'm trying to return, we can call the get value method. Okay, so this is totally we can print in the single line here. This is totally we can print in a single line. We can comment all the line of code here. Whatever we define here, we can comment out all the lines of code. Now you can see, so two parameter it is calling and it is trying to print this particular 10 value. Now you can see what we are doing here. First two parameter we are passing the constructor reference. These are all the additional two parameters we are passing, and this constructor method we are calling, and finally it is trying to returning the my class subject. Up to this it will try to return the my class. Here we made as a my class reference. From this particular my class, finally I'm trying to call the get value method. So whatever the get value we are calling, it is trying to return the 10 here. So if you are trying to give 100, what happens internally? It will try to give you the 100 value. Okay, it is trying to give you the 100 value. This section we'll call it as a one of the important example call. This is one of the important example call, something like a constructor references here. And here the same example I'm going to make as a generic type. How we can make this also generic type? Okay, how we can make this also generic type? Here, if we observe carefully, this functional interface now it is expecting the two parameters. Now it is expecting the two parameters. First one is the expected value, and the second one is something like a return type here. Getting the point? Something like a return type here. This is important. We need to understand here. Now, if I'm going to make r comma t. Okay, R is indicating the return type, T is indicating the type here. Now what we can understand here, so we can remove this particular class, we can make as a R. Okay, and if you are interested to T, you can provide this particular T like this. You can provide the particular T like this here. Okay, so this is important, we need to understand here. This is the important section we need to understand. So now observe carefully. This is very important, we need to understand whenever we are making this particular section. The class also, it should match with the T. Okay, then only we can make as a this particular T, and now here we cannot make 0. Here we should make as a null. Okay, here we should make as a null. So another constructor we should make as a T. Getting the point? And here what we can make here, so the value will make as it is, but here we are going to make as a T. So now observe carefully, we are trying to converting into the generic type. Whatever the class we are creating, now I'm trying to converting into the generic type. So now here what we can do, this particular functional interface, it's going to return the R. To return this particular R, first we need to write R comma T. Okay, R comma T, and it will return the R, and it is going to take R comma T. Okay, and here we cannot make the int value, we can make the T value. So finally now you can see, and whenever I'm making this, any error we are getting? We are not getting any error. Finally we are trying to call the same information here. Okay, we are trying to call the same information, but what we need to understand, I converted into the entire section with the generic here. Okay, entire section I converted into the generic. This is one of the important example we discuss here, constructor references. Okay, method references we discuss here, again the constructor references we discuss here. Any questions here? Okay, so if we don't have, now I want to provide the predefined functional interfaces. What are all the predefined functional interface? Okay, so first one is predicate. This is one of the important example we need to understand. Predicate. Predicate is coming from the package called java.util.function. Now you can see this is coming from the 1.8 because the method references whatever we are discussing here, this particular concept is introduced from the 1.8 onwards. Now this is the predicate interface also. Now it is introduced in the 1.8. Now you can see only one T method is a abstract method. This is the T. It is expecting abstract method. Now this is not a abstract method. It is a default method. So we can call the AND method. Okay, here we can checking the condition here. Here we are checking the AND operator here. Okay. So this is same for the this is same whatever we did inside the R AND operator, but instead of doing this, we can call the directly AND. Now you can see here we are checking the wildcard parameter condition. Whatever we discuss this particular wildcard parameter, so the information predicate internally whatever we are passing, it should match with this particular T. Okay, it should match with this particular condition. Now understand test method we are calling. Again, we are calling the same test method. Okay, AND method basically it is using internally AND operator. Instead of checking the, so this section directly we can call 2 times using this particular method. If you are not interested, you can call the AND method. This is the method, this is the operator. Okay, don't confuse here. Now you can read this. Return the composite predicate that represent the, so something, some information we are having this. Okay, so it's a simple. Just it is using internally AND operator. That same test method it is going to call 2 times. Which test method it is going to call? This is. Okay, because right now it is a abstract method. Okay, one AND method. So negate method we are having. So something like a not condition we are using here. Okay, this is also one of the default method. And another default method, R. Okay, R method. So now finally is equal method. Okay, internally we are checking the equal. So now you can see, so we have some methods here, not condition. Not condition. Okay, not condition internally that's calling negate method. Okay, these are all the default method. Now this is introduced from the 11 version, and these are all the whatever we discussed here. The remaining methods are introduced from the 1.8 onwards. This is very important to the functional interface here. This is very important functional interface, something like a predicate. Same way, we are having another functional interface, function. Okay, but this function also introduced from the 1.8. What is the package? Java.util.function. Okay, Java.util.package. Now you can see predicate. The predicate also it is under the Java.util.function. Java.util.function. This is we need to understand very carefully here. This is we need to understand very carefully. So each and every the functional interface, all the interfaces basically comes under the function interface. Sorry, function package here. Java.util.function package. Now you can see what happening internally. So now you can see it is expecting the type and it will return the R here. So here they are making as a T and R. Now you can read it is calling internally apply. It will expect the type and it is returning the R. This is the abstract method. Okay, this is the abstract method we are going to use. But now you can see they are not having any access modifier. They are not having any access modifier. Now you can see this method is trying to return the boolean, and this also will not have any access modifier like public, something like a static. They are not providing any information here. Okay, this is important here. Okay, now another default method, compose. Compose is the one of the default method. Okay, now internally it is calling the same apply method. Internally it is calling the before apply. Now you can see this is a and then method. Okay, and then method internally it is define the one more. So identity method. Identity method. Okay, These are all the some default methods are implemented inside this particular function is a one of the functional interface which is introduced from the 1.8 onwards here. Getting the point? This is so one more functional interface. So we are having lot of predefined functional interfaces here. Okay. So we'll try to discuss one by one whenever we are discussing the collection related example here. Okay, we'll come back to this particular functional interface. We'll see the what are the predefined functional interface we are having. Any questions here? Any questions? Okay. So I'm requesting here. So try to practice whatever we discussed so far. These are all the important example we discuss here. Okay. Not only one time, you need to practice multiple times. Then you can easily understand here how exactly it is going to work internally. Okay. So evening we'll continue the same session. So tomorrow, like today evening, one of the important example we are going to discuss file input stream and file output stream. So once it is completed, we'll move on to the correction framework here. Okay. We'll continue evening.